Hey guys, how are you doing? Alright, today we're going to talk about since and for. For you to understand since and for, you need to be familiar with the present perfect. So if you're not familiar with the present perfect, I suggest you go and watch that video and then come back to this video. We use since and for to refer to time for all the perfect tenses. So if we're talking about present perfect or past perfect, present perfect continuous, all the perfect tenses when you need to refer to time, you're gonna use since and for. This is actually a very simple concept, so this will probably be a very simple video, but let's see what we get. All right, let's say that this line represents my life, with this part being the present, this part being the past, and this over here being the future. And I want to talk about when I started learning English. All right, and let's imagine that I started learning English in the year 2010. All right, so I went to the institute here to the institute to learn English here in the year 2010. Now, let's say that in the present I continue studying English. I'm studying English right now. So I'm going to extend this to the present. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I have studied English, which is the expression that we get here from this line. But I want to talk about the time, the when the action started or the duration. I want to make emphasis on time. And so I'm going to use since or for to talk about that. First, we're going to talk about since. Since refers to the moment when the activity started. So in this example, I would say I have studied English since 2010. All right? Because since refers to the moment when the action started. Then I could use for the same situation. Okay? But this time, when I say for, I am not going to mention the moment when the activity started. I'm going to mention the period of time from the start of the action, the beginning of the action, to the present. So I'm going to say, we're going to imagine that in the present, this is the year 2015, right? And so I'm going to say, I have studied English for 5 years. Okay? So since refers to the beginning of the action, for refers to the period of time of the action. Now, usually we don't use present perfect to talk about things and make emphasis on time because we have present perfect continuous. Now, present perfect continuous makes emphasis on time. So usually if we use since or for, we want our sentence to be in present perfect continuous. It is not mandatory. It is possible to use present perfect or past perfect or any other form of perfect. But normally we're going to have present perfect continuous. So I'm going to change this sentence into the present perfect continuous. And I'm going to say, I have been studying English since 2010, and I have been studying English for 5 years. Okay? Now, when you're talking about the time, don't feel the obligation to give me a date. There's no necessity for you to give me a date, or not. There's not an obligation for you to give me a date. You could give me something, a phrase or an expression that helps me understand when the activity happened. So let's imagine that, for example, in 2010 over here, you were a teenager. Okay? So if you want, you can say, I have been studying English since I was a teenager. Okay? So you don't have to give me a date. An expression that helps me understand is sufficient. In the case of for, you don't have a lot of options. There's not a lot of options, but still, you can use expressions that are not necessarily a number and they can give me an idea of how long, of the period of time that has passed from the moment you started the action. So for example, you could say, I have been studying English for a long time. All right? And that's essentially everything you need to know about since and for.